Greetings and welcome back to another edition of Hearthstone Theory's Penniless Predictions. Today we'll be looking at Rastakhan's Rumble, and how the standard metagame will be affected by the expansion's release. Why aren't I predicting changes to Wild and Arena? Because, to put it simply, I don't know enough about those formats to justify predicting them. It's a miracle that I can even attempt a prediction for Standard. For this episode, I'll look at each individual class, going over their most interesting cards and interactions. With that information, I will then predict two decks. One that is new and that I think will work, and one that others think will work, but I do not. I'll even provide card lists for the new decks for players to try at home. Bear in mind that these deck lists will not be optimized, and may not be good whatsoever. It's just a little bit of fun theory crafting that hopefully will see some play. Once I'm done with every class, I will give the final prediction, which class will emerge as champion of Rastakhan. Well, let's find out what I think. This is the Penniless prediction of Rastakhan's Rumble. Before I start with each class, let's talk about the power of Rastakhan in general. In another video, I gave ratings to all of the cards in the set, but I honestly don't recommend watching that vid unless you find it absolutely necessary to know my opinion down to the last card. The gist is, most of this set concentrates on cards that are good in specific decks or specific circumstances. Even the neutral commons follow this trend. Couple that with these cards generally propping up new archetypes, and we have a trend for what I predicted before. Rastakhan's Rumble will be diverse, with many different decks doing different things. Critics of this would argue that players can just stick to the old decks that have been working without having to try something new. I counter by saying that more decks means more options for players to use. In the end, however, it holds true. Old decks will likely still see some play, especially if they were in the top tiers. It's just that new decks will rise as well. With that in mind, let's look at the classes, starting with Druid. Druid immediately proves my point when it comes to old decks not getting new pieces, and new decks coming around. Cards that would fit in the current archetypes of Malygos, Taunt, or Token Druid are non-existent. You could make a case for Gonk working with Togwaggle Druid's Twig of the World tree, but I'm not buying it. And anyone saying that Stampeding Roar works with Hadronox forgets that you don't want to play Hadronox on turn 6. So onto the new deck concepts. Big Beast Druid, Tempo Token Attack Druid, and Treant Druid trying to shine once again. And honestly, I don't like any of these decks. Tree Speaker has anti-synergy with multiple other Treant-themed cards, Attack Druid doesn't have strong enough cards to warrant its mechanic, and Big Beast Druid is just worse than Malygos Druid. Come next expansion, when cards like Branching Paths and Ultimate Infestation rotate out, these decks may be more viable. But for now, the old decks seem like the only good options. I can't even put together a deck with Baku or Gen that I like. It all seems so futile. So, here's a big Druid deck with Undasta. I don't like it, but it exists. Damn it, Blizzard, I was so optimistic when you revealed Savage Striker. But my dreams are not but 0 mana cards and clunky effects. Don't try this deck, guys. I was wrong. Okay, on to greener pastures. Hunter. With Hunters already having several decks at their disposal, Blizzard has managed to impress me once again by giving all of those decks practically nothing. For example, none of these cards have Death Rattle or can be added easily to the Death Rattle deck, though I suppose Undeteka might be able to help. So with the exception of mid-range maybe trying for a Scavenging Hyena package, I don't see old decks changing up too much. For new decks, I'll note that pieces for a Quest Hunter are certainly there, and while I certainly hope that deck will work, I don't expect it to. But seriously, Karnassa's Brood and Beastmaster is a synergy waiting to happen. I'll give that an unsure labeling, and instead consider a deck featuring Zul'jin. Some people compare this card to Yogg-Saron, to which I say, have you guys completely forgotten about Shudderwock? This card is meant for a big OTK to land on its turn, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on it for the next year as more Hunter spells are revealed. For now though, it will fuel a different concept, Big Beast Hunter. What can I say, I like Undasta, and I like the idea of summoning a big beast with Revenge of the Wild. As a note, Master's Call can discover Kathrena in this decklist, which may be a problem. But then again, you get to discover a copy of Kathrena. Overall, this decklist can be changed up quite a bit, but has some very interesting methodologies to go along with it. Do not underestimate how Undasta, Kathrena, Revenge of the Wild, and other big beasts can fit together. Now for a deck that won't work, a normal Beast Hunter. Considering that the Beastmaster, Hunter's Call, and Spirit of the Lynx combo has the Kathrena risk quadrupled, I have less faith in this than I do in Quest Hunter. But overall, the class is looking pretty solid. Onwards, Mage. In Boom's day, Mage didn't have a lot going for it. Just a control deck utilizing the Death Knight and large spell synergies. And Murlocs, I guess. But you know what might work better? Baku Mage, ladies and gentlemen, to the surprise of practically no one. The most important part of this deck is to build it like a tempo deck, and with that, the card Pyromaniac becomes a godsend. Put that in with the tempo-oriented Secrets and Masked Contender, then throw in some Black Cats, Sarnite Taskmaster, etc., and you got the makings of a very fine deck that can keep the board and have an explosive end result. Other than that, elemental synergies continue to be propped for Mage and continue to seem lackluster. Perhaps these synergies will work for the Hand Mage archetype, or perhaps they will not. But I'll definitely say that just trying to make a tempo elemental deck utilizing these new cards probably isn't going to work too well. Sorry elementals, try to find some love in Kibler's Hand Mage. Anyways, moving on. Paladin. With Odd and Even Paladin being quite strong, Rastakhan once again offers different tools, and these tools are perfect. Since Shirvallah was announced, I've been waiting to put this control deck together, and now I have all the pieces to see it done. Timeout to continue lasting, Flash of Light to cycle to the end of the deck, and a beautiful 3-card combo to finish off most opponents. Tie in some defensive cards, healing synergies, and a few buffs to round it out, and I am a happy penniless. Also, Untitled Immortal Prelate is going to be interesting. I don't even know exactly how that will end up working, but I'm excited to find out. As for a deck that won't work... Is anyone predicting a deck that won't work? It's just Odd, Even, and Control, there's nothing else. I guess... Quest Paladin probably won't? Galvadon, the last Kaleidosaur, he's not that bad if you don't die. Turn 4. Moving on, Priest. This class confuses me, to be honest. I love the idea of a dead Priest deck utilizing the Spirit, a Surrender to Madness Mojo Master combo in the late game, and drawing a bunch of cards with Bonswamdi. But I'm having a bit of difficulty putting that deck together. At the same time, a lot of other cards seen here are interesting as well, though none of them seem to fit smoothly with the Clone Combo Priest. When I look at these cards, I see a lot of very good stuff where I can't say for certain how effective it will be. With Seance, you could very well make a Quest Priest that's just impossible to kill. You had a similar deck back in Witchwood, so I think this will bring that back to fruition. Once again, looking at these cards, I don't see a deck that makes me go, oh, that won't work. I see good cards that may have decks that work with them, but I don't know what those decks are. Like I said, I'm very confused. So my failing deck prediction is going to be a bit challenging. I guess the Auchenai Burst Damage idea won't work? Was that an idea that people had? I don't know. This is hard, guys. There are a lot of cards in the game right now. Let's move on to something simpler. Rogue. Several fair archetypes exist for the Rogue class already. Tempo, Odd, even a flavor of Death Rattle. For a start to this, I believe that Kingsbane Rogue may well have a return to relevance, thanks to Raiding Party in particular. As for the more popular and powerful archetypes, this set continues the trend of giving them nothing. No surprises there. For a new archetype, Spirit of the Shark is easily one of the strongest cards for Rogue at the moment, seeing as its brand with stealth. In Wild, keep an eye out for a Mill Rogue. For Standard, this card used in conjunction with Grawl the Shark and a well-crafted deck can yield some deadly results. Now, I'll note for this deck I gave you guys, it's really, really weird. I have no idea if this deck will work, but I'm very, very eager to try it, or some variation of it. Battle cries, combos, and means to make Grawl the Shark a 5-mana 22/22. So much could go right, so much could go wrong, and I think that's the point. As for a deck that won't work, I don't see a mid-range pirate deck working. Captain Hooktusk isn't quite good enough to spearhead that deck, and even if it did work, Galaka Crawler eats that deck for breakfast. Literally. Up next, Shaman. Behold, the myth, the legend, the exact thing Shaman needed right now. 2 good legendaries that synergize off of each other. Praise be! The obvious choice for Shaman in this meta would be an Evolve deck, utilizing the Death Knight, Unstable Evolution, and these 2 cards to create excellent results. With this in mind, I only have one remaining question. Can this deck utilize Spirit of the Frog? I'm not entirely sure, so for now I would recommend nixing that stratagem. Now it's notable that Shaman is another class that has been pitched one deck type, and has otherwise only received cards that are pretty underwhelming. Except Bog Slosher, that thing is awesome for Shudderwock Shaman. But anyways, I'll just leave a small note that Lickham probably won't be completing any aggressive overload decks anytime soon, but it may be useful in a well-crafted spell deck that utilizes Krogwa and Zentimo wisely. Probably not though. All in all, this class seems best handled by players who want to try something a little more atypical. Try to have fun with it. Next we have Warlock. Oh, pathetic, embarrassing Warlock. Hand buffing and discard, the two historically worst mechanics to ever grace Hearthstone, and which notably have no synergy whatsoever, given to this class at the same time. How the mighty have fallen. While this cycle will be the only time where this discard the lowest cost card mechanic and Zappos will be in the meta together, this combination has one crucial weakness. It requires you to draw Zappos. I suppose it may end up working, in which case more power to it. Unlimited tempo from Lucari Sacrifice ought to count for something. At least that will be better than hand buffing, which I anticipate will not succeed very easily. But both of these will likely pale in comparison to Evenlock and Heal Zoolock. I don't know though, maybe this is Discard's time to finally shine. Then again, every other time I've thought this, I've been grossly incorrect, so hard to say. And finally, Warrior. Dragons, Rush, or a hybridization, which will emerge on top? It's a difficult question. Akalai is somewhat clunky, but his spirit is pretty strong. There isn't a huge amount of dragon support, but there's also the might of Warmaster Voon. I mulled over this choice before finally remembering a common thread to link the two decks together. Scale Worm, a card seeing little play since dragons haven't been a thing for quite some time. With this card as a medium-powered centerpiece, this deck can bring the concept of a tempo-oriented warrior deck to a new level, the level of dragons. Good stuff. Now, for anyone who wants to try out Even Warrior, don't. The cards aren't good enough to keep such an idea going. I'll just leave it at that. And that's all I got. Once again, I'd like to remind everyone that these decks are not guaranteed to be optimized, and even their optimized versions are not guaranteed to work. With that in mind, deck strings are in the description. Go out and give them a shot, or create your own decks that are even better. Now, these deck varieties are all well and good, but I know the question on everyone's mind. Which class will be the best? Which class will have the tier 1 decks and triumph over all of the others? Well, my friends, the answer is Paladin. And not because of the control deck. Odd and Even Paladin will be the best. This is a tough pill for me to swallow. Every meta in the Year of the Raven has had Odd and Even Paladin on top, after all. But unfortunately, that's not a bug in the system, it's a necessary flaw. When it comes to Hearthstone, you can have all of the fancy combinations that you can muster, but the central pillar of the game will always be tempo. Baku and Gen are strong for many decks, but they're strongest where they can provide extra tempo. Even Paladin, Odd Paladin, and even Shaman. This is never going to change. No matter how horrible a Gen deck starts off, it will have something to put on the field. The same can't be guaranteed for other decks. But don't get me wrong, I still believe this meta will be a strong and diverse one. Many decks exist that can counter one another. But if you want to reach Legend in the first week of Rastakhan... Actually, now that I think about it, play my Dragon Rush Warrior. It has Dragon Moss Scorcher to deal with Paladin, but it's still fast enough to crush most opposition quickly. A strong mid-range deck that plays with new cards while putting down opposition if played smart. You know what? Never mind. Some classes may be on top, but all decks have weaknesses. So go out, find those weaknesses, and make yourself the champion of the Gurubashi Arena. I'll be fighting alongside you on Twitch at 1:30 PM Eastern Standard Time, #shameless plug. Best of luck, smile on the just, and go make your team proud.